Jarvis, lead instructor trainer for Merrithew. Today I would like to talk about how to create more flow in your Zenga class. So there's 4 things that I consider when I'm looking at creating a class. First thing is, what is my goal or my intention of the class? The second thing is, what are some common restrictions or common concerns that clients have? Third thing is, what props am I going to use? Whether it's knee balls, flex bands, spring resistance. Fourth thing is, what exercises am I going to use to achieve these goals? Okay, so today I'm going to use the goal of creating more balance, or working on more balance, and doing more standing work. I find that a lot of times clients don't have that flexibility or the strength in a standing position or a balancing position. So we're going to be doing some exercises that will help to bring awareness to weight distribution through the sole of the foot, and also stability through the lateral and posterior hip muscles, okay? So I'm going to use a flex band first because I like to actually release any restrictions that might surround the foot or the ankle or the hip joint prior to doing some standing balance stuff, just because it just brings more awareness to the connection into the ground and hopefully will help them to connect better into the hip. Okay, so from here what I'm going to do is put the flex band under the arch of the foot, pull up on the band gently. I don't want too much tension here, and I'm going to put the weight distribution on the opposite leg. From here I'm going to soften the knee so that I have a little loosey-goosey hip position here. And I'm going to go into this little push and pull pattern, which is just going to give me a little bit of release through the sole of the foot and the superficial tissue. Okay? So I'm just giving this little push and pull pattern here, which is taking the knee out and going into a little bit of inversion and eversion as I pull up and down, making sure that I'm not creating this movement muscularly, just by my arms kind of moving up and down here. Okay? Then I'm going to take the ends of the band. We don't have to do that for too long. I'm going to place the ends of the band at the hip, and then I'm going to focus on mobility at the hip joint. Often clients they can't get into their hip joint, whether it's the abductors or the glute max, because they have restrictions here. And what this does is just help you to mobilize the hip joint, okay, and finding areas of restriction maybe through the lateral or the posterior part of the hip, okay? So what I'm doing is I'm exploring how much range do I have forward and back, okay? So working through that. Then I'm going to go side by side, and then I'm going to explore the coronal plane here. So I'm going to work on a little bit of balance, okay? Eventually adding in a little bit of a side bend here to open up the side of the hip, okay? So getting them a little bit more aware of what they have to do to maintain the balance, basically putting more weight into that foot, right? Countering that by engaging the lateral part of the hip. Okay, from here, I can then go into like a little bit of a leg swing here, which will just help them just to mobilize the hip a little bit better, get a little bit of looseness, right? Sometimes we over grip in the hip, which then helps, is too much bracing, right? And then we lack mobility, okay? Once I've done that, then I can take the band out and do a little awareness check. So getting them to explore, how does the right side feel versus the left side? Getting them to feel, maybe giving me a few things that they think, what are the main differences? So they should feel more openness through the sole of the foot, maybe a little bit of freedom in the hip joint, okay? And that will also help them to connect better when I get into some of my standing exercises. So for example, now that they have a little bit more freedom, I can cue, think of the big toe, little toe heel, feel that connection into the ground. As I do that standing balance exercise, now they're a little bit more grounded. Now they feel that connection better, and that travels up to the hips so they're more stable. Okay? If I was going into a lunge position here, then going into that lunge, they feel the 4 corners, or the 3 corners, big toe, little toe, and heel, as they're going down and up. Okay? And then when I make that more dynamic, okay, now they're connected with the ground, I can then get them to move through that exercise and focus on balance at the same time. Okay? So I hope you can see the flow of that. I release some of the restrictions or areas where there's common restrictions, and then start to work it muscularly, and hopefully the release techniques will help them to just be a little bit more aware of what they have to do to connect into the ground to stabilize. Okay? Hopefully that helps you with standing exercises. Okay? Take care.